Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative. We are made possible by Robison Oil, the house that service built. By Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by White Plains Hospital, too. We are joined by John Bailey, publisher, editor of White Plains CitizeNet Reporter, WPCNR.com. And John is also the host of a couple of TV shows on your cable systems spread wide across Westchester County. They are People to Be Heard and White Plains Week. John Bailey, welcome back. A tumultuous month of January so far. Maybe the most stable thing might be County Executive George Latimer's budget. Maybe.
Mr. Stability himself.
Is that it? Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Does he address in this budget, and we've talked about it before, there have been alterations since last time around. Is this budget addressing what we need most of all around this county?
Well, in his worldwide YouTube 3-minute address of the state of Westchester County for all the world to know, he pointed out that they have been frugal. They have, straightened out the finances. They're going to sit down with the bond and analysts, and be able to point to that. And he also said he would concentrate on the county airport master plan. And let's see, that the other main item was the county center refurbishing, and of course, those are two intriguing little projects. They should take him out to when he supposedly leaves office in at the end of 2025.
How about housing? We've talked about that before. The need for more housing.
I didn't mention that. He didn't mention that at all. In fact, that's up in the air because Governor Hochul has come down and says we have got to really loosen up zoning all around the state, and every community has to have a plan. That sounds very familiar to what happened 5 years ago when Mr. Astorino was defeated by Mr. Latimer, and they had just finally worked out an agreement with HUD when HUD had a similar complaint. So
from the Obama, dating back to the Obama administration originally, and that's still to some extent maybe an issue today. Can George Latimer just go into a community and say, look, I got to put some housing somewhere. I think it's going to be here. So can you help us out?
Well, listen, Mr. Latimer is very smooth. I mean, that 3-minute address that he made was a tightly packed, very good address. It established, I'm in control. We are in control. We are doing the right things, and it just gives a great sense of security. Watching something like that. It's a made-for-television political commercial. They could dip in and grab sound bites out of it, and I'm wondering why we need to do something like that.
Does it get things done? For example, the county center has not been the county center as we know it since COVID began. What are the plans for that?
Oh, well, we don't know yet. We are going to figure them out. And, on my television show this morning, I pointed out that what you might really want to think about is immediately booking some studies just to see what is possible with the county center from a construction standpoint, what's involved, the costs, and some blue sky ideas from a county standpoint, just commission a study. And I also felt that on the airport, nothing has been done on that in 5 years. Nothing.
Now, the county airport has been an issue for 30 years in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Why does it seem like nothing gets done at the county airport? Why does it seem like every few months we have to talk about why Playland, or maybe why 3 years after this pandemic broke out, and I know we're coming out still bit by bit, we don't have a real game plan yet for the county center. I think these are legitimate questions around Westchester that most people around the county, it kind of crosses their mind from what I know from time to time.
Right. Well, to my way of thinking, once again, you have to figure out what is going on with what you can do in the county center. You know, do you want to expand it? And of course, nobody likes to change anything in Westchester County if it's near them or overhead or whatever, or is very close to where they live. And when you run a situation in which you have people comment and tell you what they want and their ideas on Playland or the airport or whatever, you're always going to get what they don't want.
So how does George Latimer's address tie into Kathy Hochul's State of the State address?
Well, he doesn't mention that.
That was interesting, yeah.
Yes, he did not mention affordable housing as to what he planned to do about it. But when he put out the budget, he did say he was good. I believe he did put out some millions for affordable housing. But remember, he did that survey 3 years ago, establishing that there's about an 11,000 shortage in affordable housing units in Westchester, and nothing has happened with that.
No, and I do think that you may agree with me on this. I think it's hard to place certain kinds of housing in certain areas. For example, if you say Somers, help out. Granite Springs, please help out. Or maybe Montrose, help out. The reaction may not be the same as it would be down in Mount Vernon, for example.
No, but the Hochul plan is that every community has to put together a plan. So that is to make housing more affordable and more units that are affordable in those communities. That's what she mentioned. Now, considering that Andrea Stewart-Cousins, the senator, has suddenly come out quite adverse to Ms. Hochul, this is going to be hard to get across when Governor Hochul submits the budget.
Why is Andrea Stewart-Cousins leaning towards the far left wing of the party now, where we've known her as being a practical, sensible George Latimer kind of a Democrat?
Yeah, when she takes a position, which is rare. But be that as it may, this is a problem because once you have the legislative bodies pick people for key positions like judges, like cabinet members, like commissioners, you have crossed the line. The governor simply is a paperwork person then. And it is a true test of governorship power. We had a indication of what happens when the presidency and the majority leader, who also happened to be a senator, but in another body, the U.S. Senate, decided they would not act on any appointments till after Obama left office. And we had 3 horrendous picks approved.
Well, we know that.
Like that.
I guess, common
That's why you can't have this in the state.
Right. Common courtesy is that a president gets to their pick, whoever that he or she might be for a certain pick, for a court, for a department head, a federal department head, whatever it might be, they get to put in who they want. That's protocol established for decades, if not centuries, in this country. And likewise, the governor of any state who is the president of their respective state should have that right to, if this is who I want in my administration, let's go with it. If you get voted in after me, you can do whatever you want at that point. So does Kathy Hochul now, how does she govern now for another 3.5, almost 4 years, if everything she does from the people in her own party, they turn around and say, Governor, it's a no-go?
Well, look, you do not want to cross Kathy Hochul. She did not get to where she is, putting up with being a figurehead traveler around the state under Governor Cuomo. And then she actually beat the best the Democrats had to put up in the primary. She defeated Suozzi, a well-known politician, a polished politician.
Right.
And I was impressed with that because I thought Suozzi could pull it off, but too many people ran, so they split out the vote. When are these people going to realize you cannot run, a soccer team in a primary? That's how we got New York's Donald Trump as president, because there's too many Republicans.
Too many people ran, right? And eventually somebody that you don't expect is going to emerge from the bunch. They do emerge. John Bailey is the publisher and the editor of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, host of White Plains Weekend People, to be heard on your cable systems around Westchester. Right here, we are on the beat in Westchester. I'm John Marino. We are produced by Sharc Creative on Westchester Talk Radio. John Bailey, the MTA, is crying, begging the governor. I mean, just pulling at her purse strings. Governor, we need more money again. Please. And this comes down to, according to reports, that Metro North runs the kit and caboodle better, much better than the LIRR or the subways do. And yet it's one entity. When are they going to stop just asking for money and be able to make do with what they have, considering now we did have a pandemic and still kind of have a pandemic too?
Well, right now, the problem is people aren't coming back to work. They're not riding the rails. The revenue is down. It's like still only half of what it was before the pandemic hit. That is half the revenue gone.
Right. And yet I've seen reports how the LIRR, for example, could manage their money a bit more like a Metro North. You would think that they run the same way under the same umbrella. They do not. The subways, they do their own thing. The subways and buses in New York City. The Metro North branch does things their own way. The LIRR their own way. For example, it costs a good deal less to get a monthly ticket from on Metro North, the North White Plains station, down to Grand Central, than it does, say, on the LIRR from Hicksville into Penn Station every day, even though the distance from North White Plains and Hicksville to Midtown Manhattan is basically, there's like a 1 mile difference. Can we get everybody to operate in sync, or just these units of Metro North and the LIRR and the subways of the MTA just too divergent to ever be able to do this?
There's 3 different sandboxes.
Right.
And everybody wants to run their sandbox their way. Now, if the MTA truly controls all these outfits like Metro North and the LIRR, my feeling is you have to cut back on your schedules if your ridership is down by 50%.
All right, so how do you get me to ride then and get me back to work in Midtown Manhattan at that point?
You add trains as they come back. How hard is that? They're supposed to manage it. It's like airlines when they don't have crews. Boom, we just stop the flights and strand millions. And nobody cares about that, but that's bad management.
Right. There's no question about that. What happened nationally with the airlines during the holidays and right after the holidays, too, a few weeks back. This all, I guess, kind of ties into the national infrastructure problem that we've had for so long, for decades. And I would agree with Joe Biden that how can we be the top economy in the world if we can't get our own infrastructure in this country here to work the way it is supposed to?
Well, it depends on what infrastructure you want to construct. Do we repair roads? I tell you, drive around White Plains, drive around Westchester County, and they're not fixing potholes anymore. And when they do a lousy job. And to my way of thinking, infrastructure has to be specifically oriented and not to need, and not done as a pork barrel, which it has always been. And Kentucky, I believe, gets more money for infrastructure than any state, because McConnell's from
Right, and they still can't fix their roads there. I think that's part of why we had to have the president and Mitch McConnell together there in Kentucky and trying to make sure that bridge to Cincinnati gets rebuilt. That proves the point right there that Kentucky, I don't think, knows how to manage their roads and bridges no matter how much money we give them.
I don't know if that is the problem, but they do get a lot of money. And when the one time I did drive down into Kentucky on a trip, I was impressed by all the construction going on roads that had no traffic.
I had a feeling you might say that. Yeah, nobody on the roads. They got a lot of holes.
My God.
How do you get all these holes in the road if nobody rides these roads?
Yes.
That means they were just constructed badly and poorly to begin with, no question about that. And, people should not have to pay for that, but we do take the brunt of all that. That's just the way the things work. John, you could bring up every possible infrastructure issue, and you would be right about we need to fix this, we need to fix that, yet we don't have the money for all of that. Let's move over, or hopefully maybe we'll be able to restructure a lot of the money in the federal infrastructure bill to be able to take care of at least most of this.
It's all done by lobbying, though.
And that's the whole key.
Yes, and the lobbying is one of the true problems with Washington, D.C., because senators and congressmen are lobbied.
Yeah, and now we see President Biden, he wants to try to be bipartisan, which is a big part of why he got together with Mitch McConnell to do what he did in that bridge to link Ohio and Kentucky. And that's step one for the president in a positive direction, in a positive light, with what he did with Mitch McConnell to try to bring the country together. And now though, we get the Biden papers, the Biden documents, well documented already. How much does this hurt the president? How much fallout do you think there will be? Does this affect?
Well, we're only
his efforts
3 weeks in. 3 weeks into the new Congress, and there has been no progress on anything. You've got all of a sudden I'm reading in the paper this morning, we're up against the debt ceiling. Well, we knew that was going to happen. And nobody seems really too concerned about that. And they're going to cook the books a little while and see what happens.
Being up against the debt ceiling to me is kind of like the Republicans knew they had 2 months to work out the leadership. They had people, I guess, who were not willing or interested in doing that for the good of the country. They could have made their points. They could have gotten whatever power they wanted within that 2-month frame, instead of putting this on a national and a worldwide stage where, to me, we looked like fools around the world that entire.
We look like a banana republic.
That's what we looked like. Day one, I told a couple of people, this is our day to turn into the British Commons. But after 4 or 5 days, we turned into a banana republic. We were that likely on day 2. You want to, grandstand for a day or for 36 hours? We got the point. You got something better? Let us know. If you don't, let's move on and proceed with business. The business of the people down in Washington, D.C. Do you think the Biden documents and papers will impact his ability or decision?
Yes, I think it will, because they're going to investigate for the next 2 years. You thought the January 6th investigation took a long time and was thorough. This will be the most thorough investigation ever. It will last up until election 2022.
So what do
24? What am I saying?
24.
Election 24.
Yeah, we still got 2022. The election's on our minds, no doubt about that. And what do the Democrats do then? Who do you think might
they have
be
a big problem?
Candidate?
They have a big problem right now. And then Brett Stevens, the Times columnist, and Gail Collins both kind of think Biden should not run, because right now they have 2 years to figure out to get someone to run who will be somewhat divorced from the Biden stigma. But the Democrats have a huge problem. They don't have a big dame.
Do you think that somebody who knew the inner workings of Biden and the way he does things, they were the ones who tipped somebody off, because how are lawyers, they were moving things. You don't hire lawyers to move boxes. Did somebody tattletale that maybe worked with Joe Biden and the Obama administration, might be working with him now, and knew about the movement of those documents through the years and where they landed, and said, I don't want him to run again. My friends don't want him to run again. So I'm going to go tell somebody some tales, and those tales will turn out to be true and maybe impact Joe Biden.
As they say in the mystery police procedures, there's no such thing as a coincidence.
No. And that's my question, why no one that I've seen in the 2 weeks this is going on, why no one has posed this question to anyone, for example, to Karine Jean-Pierre. Is there somebody that you think may have, and she's not going to mention a name, or do you think within the walls of the Biden administration there's the thought that somebody told somebody about something, and that's why we know about all this and why we're doing this right now?
Well, definitely somebody should. But actually, I think there should be an investigation
of the administration
as to who leaked those papers. Obviously, the Supreme Court has no idea who did the leak. They announced that this week, which is ludicrous. Everybody knows who did it, but they're not coming clean.
Supposedly, they were closing in on somebody we read a week ago, and now maybe that somebody doesn't exist, which, I don't know, maybe it was George Santos who was in the middle of the Supreme Court, Roe versus Wade decision.
George Santos makes the American government look foolish.
Maybe he's the guy who tipped off somebody about the Biden papers and documents. And then talk about a banana republic. This story grows by the day. Newsday this week did a great expose on George Santos, a great 3-page expose. And I say from day one, there has to be a number of people around this tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, who know this guy, who worked with this guy, who dealt with this guy. Tell us what you know about him, whether his name is George Santos, Anthony DeVolder, George DeVolder, whether or not he should be a contestant on To Tell the Truth. And you remember the old To Tell the Truth show. This is a To Tell the Truth episode. I'm George Santos. I'm Anthony DeVolder. I'm George DeVolder.
Couldn't do a show like that today, John, because nobody tells the truth.
Yeah, nobody tells the truth. So my first question is, what is his real name? Because I have a feeling it may not be any of the names I just mentioned so far. How did you talk about looking like a banana republic?
Could be that his birth certificate is missing, so he may not be
day by day now. Is he really, we talk about foreign plants in this country and Russian plants and Russian bots into our political system. Is this guy an implanted Russian or some other foreign adversary bot who's really some kind of a robot? And this just goes on day by day until we pull this robot.
It's a distraction.
It's beyond a distraction, honestly. Yeah. It's beyond a distraction. So didn't the Long Island Republican Party, Nassau, Suffolk, etc., this district now, the third, which was the Swazi district, which was with the first redistricting, was supposed to include the Sound Shore area of Westchester that got scuttled, went back to close to what it was under Swazi. We got George Santos. Didn't anybody on Long Island, Nick LaLota and Anthony Esposito, for example, really vet this guy? The New York Times vetted the guy. Don't you think, Republican Party of Long Island, you should have done this first? It's after the fact, but it's too late.
That's the way the New York Times does things. After the deed has been done, after the horse has left the stable, then the Times launches a huge investigation and comes out with it, but it's too late.
I don't put this on the New York Times, though. I put this on the Long Island Republicans, who should have figured this guy out, because this guy has been a master finagler for 20 years or so now between this country and this area and his native or seemingly native
country. It's like a movie come to life.
It's like a movie. This is like a spy movie come to life. And I wonder, is this guy some kind of spy who was planted here and now his cover got blown no matter who sent him?
Well, how can be trusted with anything?
Anything. How can he be trusted to make the laws of this country? He's being booted to kind of a low-level membership on certain House committees. How could you put him on any committee, which begs the question, how can we get rid of this guy? That answer of, well, if 142,000 people vote me out in 2 years, I'll go. Until then, I'm staying.
Yeah.
How do we get rid of this guy? No way right now, right? Unless the Republican
nobody that is elected now is going to do that, because they realize that might happen to them. So they're not going to do it to somebody else.
Which also now leads to Donald Trump and his expected battle with Ron DeSantis. He went on a conservative radio show a few days ago, did Donald Trump. And when that question was posed to him about his supposed, now I guess former pal Ron DeSantis, running for the Republican presidential nomination against him, Donald Trump said, "We'll handle him the way I always handle things," which means what?
Well, that sounds like a threat to me.
To me, too, it does. So.
Yes. I mean, somebody once said that to me when there was a squabble over a rodeo position in college, and I got a threatening phone call that I should let someone else have it. So I went right to the dean. I wasn't going to put up with any of that crap because I felt I was threatened.
Should we recommend to Ron DeSantis that he not get caught in any compromising positions or situations right now?
Well, people are already trying to dig up something on him, but he has a deteriorating situation in Florida simply because he's now, I think he did something with one of the colleges down there. Mm-hmm. Right. And this is a real threat to academic freedom. Although sometimes you wonder whether academic freedom is overused. I mean, particularly at certain Big Ten colleges that don't really discipline their staff well.
Should we recommend that Ron DeSantis just simply go to the governor's mansion by day and just go straight home at night? I know I try that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Now, Mr. DeSantis.
Not that I ever go to a governor's mansion, but my day-to-day business. I try to go right home now.
Yeah, well, right now, DeSantis is the front runner.
Right.
I think if the election were held today, DeSantis against Biden, DeSantis wins. He's
in all likelihood.
He wins big because the Democrats have so many negatives. They have more negatives. They tried to fix a representatives in New York State, something the Republicans have been doing across the country in legislatures, but they get no flack for that.
John Bailey, we'll talk to you again soon. Who knows what happens between now and then, John Bailey.
I shudder.
Plains CitizeNet Reporter. He is the publisher and executive editor at WPCNR.com and also the host of a couple of TV shows around Westchester. They are White Plains Weekend People to be Heard, and they are available on your cable systems all throughout this county of Westchester. Here on Westchester Talk Radio on the beat in Westchester, I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative. We thank you again, John Bailey. We are made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that Service built. Also by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by White Plains Hospital 2. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam and Dutchess, Orange and Fairfield County programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube. Download our app, Westchester Talk. Take it with you 24/7, 365. And yes, we are now on Apple Podcasts too.